This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, make sure you tune in to my Instagram Live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We call it PR Talk from the PR Garage. Now, if you've listened for like half a second, or you've seen me on social media, you know that I sort of refer to the place that I work as the PR Garage. It is literally my garage. It's where I set up during COVID when I was working for an agency. And it's where I've transitioned now that I run my own agency. I still work out of my PR garage. It is my second home, and it's actually my first home because it's my real garage, and I love it. So tune in on Instagram Live Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. PR Talk from the PR Garage. We take 15 minutes. We do a what's going on in PR, what's going on in the world. I like to hear from you guys. We play a little game called Why Is That News, where I pull a story out of my local media and I describe why I think it's news, but want to get your input as well. So make sure you tune in and check me out. That's on my Instagram handle at Jody Fisher, and there's a little underscore at the end of that, but you'll still be able to find me when you search. Now let's get on with our show today. I'm excited by this guest. Mindy Gale is founder of the award-winning creative and media agency Gale Branding. She's been a force in the industry for 20 plus years. Now, chances are you have seen her work in action, from launching the Jessica Simpson brand, spearheading consumer campaigns for K-Swiss, producing FIT's Future of Fashion show in New York City, to overseeing past and present brand development for Averex. Mindy's consistently stayed ahead of the curve, anticipating market trends and evolving with the ever-changing landscape of PR, media, and branding. Don't we know that's the truth? Mindy, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you, Jody. Thanks. So nice to be here with you.
We're glad you could join us. Now, we find you're based in Manhattan.
Correct.
You're right off the High Line, you were saying, which is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I love it. We're in a very creative part of the city, tons of art galleries, views of the Hudson. It's a very inspirational area of New York. Yeah.
And it's a great place to have located your agency, because you are kind of geographically, you're at the epicenter of everything cool that is going on in New York, right?
I like to think so. And when we're out on the street, walking the High Line and just being right in the neighborhood, it is extremely inspirational because you see everything. Artists, creators, media people, it keeps you close to the heartbeat of what's happening culturally. And I think that is just the nucleus of our business.
And you, especially with the clients that you work with, need that. We really dropped some names there: Jessica Simpson and K-Swiss and FIT, which is the Fashion Institute of Technology there in New York. Tell us about some of that work that you've done with them.
Well, it is super important to be culturally relevant, I'm going to say, and that does evolve, that changes. And each of those clients that you mentioned have very specific stories, Jody. I don't know if I can tell them all, but with Jessica Simpson, for example, we won this piece of business. Jessica was amazing. She was a singer, beautiful girl, but she wasn't a designer. So we had to figure out what was going to make that work. How are we going to launch it? How are we going to get some of the toughest fashion editors around to even want to write about it? And there were waters to navigate, because a lot of them wanted to hear more of her personal stories and what was going on with her and her guy at the time. And we had to keep pumping out messaging and visuals that told a brand story. And I think the most important takeaway, not just from Jessica, but what's going on today, it's all about storytelling, right? We have to have emotional connections with the end user. And of course, in our industry, we're pitching to an editor, sometimes a stylist, when we're dealing with fashion or beauty. But ultimately, it has to make sense for a consumer. And we have to have touch points built in that will resonate with somebody. And that usually happens much faster with a pretty picture than a lot of words. So that's kind of the, I'll say it's sort of the baseline of where we start almost all of our communications for clients.
Yeah, let's use that as an example of a challenge. You've got a person in Jessica Simpson who is a celebrity. She's
Right.
known for certain things, right?
Right,
And she's
right.
not known for, but she's coming to you saying, "I want to be known for something different, something outside of her regular, stuff that she does."
Exactly.
How do you work with a client? And we're not trying to pick on Jessica Simpson here.
No.
How do you work with a client like that who says, "I'm doing this new thing and I want to be known for this"?
Right.
How do you, on the one hand, launch that new thing and at the same time fend off the preconceived notions of what she either can or can't do, or what she already is, and we want to talk about that and not the other thing. Like, how do you juggle all that stuff?
So great question. And it is a juggle, and there's not a quick answer, but I will remind everybody that when you are working with a celebrity, often there are many other partners involved, right? Someone has licensed the name and either bought the intellectual property or are licensing it for a category. In the case of Jessica, there were layers. So we were working with the person that really was running the intellectual property, had a stake in it, and then all the tentacles from footwear to outerwear to jewelry, everything you can imagine. And it's true, people had preconceived ideas about who and what she was. So it had to start with an incredible idea for a photo shoot where we could capture imagery of her that didn't just portray her as a singer or a gorgeous girl, but she really had to look authentic as a fashionista at that time when we were launching. So we shot someplace that was realistic for her. We shot kind of in the desert in California. We got a vintage Mustang convertible that she looked perfect in, and it was believable because that's the part of the world she's from. And we worked extremely closely with a stylist to source all of the best, I'm going to say, products to put together a whole look that would be believable for Jessica Simpson and position her as the gorgeous fashion icon that she really became. But we did her very, very first shoot. We got Billy Bush was there covering it on broadcast. We had a story in Women's Wear Daily covering it. So we blended the look and the feel with the goals of PR and exposure. It all has to come together. I'm a huge believer in brand cohesion, right? The pictures, the words have to go together. The audio has to go together. Everything has to send the same message to get your point across.
And you hit on that word that is so important to what we do, which is authenticity. And that's the cohesion part too, right? That you're pulling together all of these different pieces to achieve an authentic vision of what you're trying to promote.
Yes, it's true. And no matter what lane you're in as a professional, you have to understand the vision and the emotional touch points that the brand, that your client needs and is part of, because each world is different. I mean, for example, we work on this fabulous brand called Averex. Some people call it Averex. It has aviation roots. And Tom Cruise wore it in Top Gun, and it was that whole look and feel of aviation. And then we realized it was starting to get hot on the street many, many years ago. And to be authentic for that brand means dressing the right people, right? There's a lot of celebrity seating in the music industry, in entertainment in general. If we put an Averex jacket on the wrong guy and it doesn't look true to the brand, the core consumers will walk away. So, you know, the old adage, any publicity is good publicity. Not so, not so. Authenticity rules. And we're super careful about that. And, sometimes it's hard because you have to say no to great outlets or seeding opportunities that on the surface seem like, wow, I can reach millions of people for this client. And when you dig a little deeper, you realize it could be damaging and you have to hold back.
Let's stick on that idea for a minute, because I think there might be either a misconception about what we do, or maybe even within our industry,
Yeah.
people might just, take every media opportunity that comes along. You just talked about turning certain things down because you're trying to achieve an authentic
Yes.
end result.
Yes. And it is very difficult to do that. That's called discipline, Jody. When you've been around for decades doing this, you have to be disciplined in how you expose your client so it benefits them. And in the industries that we primarily focus on, which are consumer-facing products, sales are at stake. Sales are at stake all the time. And that's how we get measured ultimately. We don't keep clients signing on for year after year, right? If we are not helping them grow. So that's how we all get measured, right? In this industry.
Absolutely. Now, there have to have been, and I'm not asking you to tell any stories on anybody, but there have to have been moments where you need to educate the client to say, no, that's not the right way to go. It's over here because we're trying to tell that authentic story. How do you do that? How do you have those conversations with those clients to say, hey, it should be over here and here's why?
So those are careful, serious conversations. And as you could probably tell, I'm not a wallflower, and most of the people in my shop aren't. And I think that honesty trumps telling the client, oh, sure, I'll do that. When you're honest, and sometimes we'll have to quote unquote prove it, where we'll say, no, that model really isn't right for this campaign, and here's why, and here's some of the players in the market. Or we'll have to show a location that might be better than something that the client thought about, or even a phrase in a press release. You have to be honest. Not everybody should be quoted in your client's press release. I mean, that's one I think we've all dealt with, right? Sometimes your point person wants to be quoted, and maybe they're not the right person to be quoted. You need somebody from the C-suite and the appropriate person from the C-suite. And it's not about just getting everybody exposure that wants it. I'm laughing because I'm sure everyone that listens to your podcast has had that experience.
Well, and I'm laughing too, because I've done a fair amount of work interfacing with government. I've never worked for government, but that I'm thinking of the classic, government press release where it's literally 10 or 15 quotes in a row from this person and then that person and then this elected official and then that elected official.
Yeah.
And it's just the most boring thing in the world, right?
Right. Who cares? You have to think about it. Who cares
exactly
that John Doe said this? So, I had one instance where there was a designer for a pretty well-known brand, and the designer wanted to sort of be the lead in the PR. And I had to explain that until the brand becomes famous, no one's going to care who the designer or the brand is. Your name won't mean anything unless the brand gets the glow up. So it worked out in the end, but it was a rocky couple of months in the beginning.
I bet it is. And that's part of the job that we volunteer for, right?
Right. Sometimes it is like volunteer work.
A lot of extra hours. Part of what you do is product seeding and placement.
Yes.
And we've seen, I guess, a real rise over the last decade or so in how product products get placed in media with everybody running away from wanting ads? I'm just thinking about streaming, right? Nobody wants to sit through ads while they're watching their favorite Netflix or whatever it is. Brands have gotten better on putting their products into the thing that you're watching.
Yes.
And that can even be more effective. But tell me how you do that in your business.
So I can't give away all the secret sauce, but we have a bastion of contacts that are stylists, agents, handlers, and depending on the sector we're talking about, we take it right up the chain. So athletes today are enormous brand ambassadors. And the truth of the matter is, the athletes need really cool brands because let's face it, social media has an insatiable appetite. So even if they wore the most unbelievable Gucci suit in the tunnel, walking onto the NBA floor, they can't wear that tomorrow. They need something new because everybody saw them in it. So it can work in all of our favor because there is this constant need for newness. That's what drives us all a little bit crazy too, right? That you always have to be delivering newness. So you have to work with the stylists, the handlers, the agents, and doesn't hurt to dangle some carrots in front of them either, right? They want to feel the love too. And that's okay. They work hard. They work hard to help us get into those relationships. I will also say that you've got to deliver. You can't just talk the talk. If you work with a stylist or an agent, whoever it is, and you say, no worries, I'm getting your guy these 3 jackets and these shirts and blah, 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 and it'll be there on such and such a day. It better be there because you get one chance. So if you become the reliable source for product seeding, they're going to come back, and they're going to come back with other clients and other personalities because you make them look good, right? So when the handler tells the athlete or the celebrity, don't even worry about it. Tomorrow, you're going to have 10 things to try on. You're going to look amazing on the red carpet, or you're going to look amazing in the green room, or whatever it is. They want to make sure you have their back. So that's just something I can tell you from the years of doing this. And those relationships are absolutely invaluable, as important as any editor you will ever work with.
For sure. Yeah. Delivering the goods and creating those relationships. Just, you can't put a price tag on it.
You can't. You can't.
You mentioned events there too, and a critical part, I think, of what you do probably is not just getting the publicity, not just making them look good, but also putting them in the right places to, again, reinforce that authenticity. And I'm thinking about industry events, charitable events, thinking about working with nonprofits, things. How do you interface with them doing that stuff?
Well, I think you just said the magic word, the charitable component. Very important. Again, that charitable component must be authentic to the brand, personality, or service you're working with. But it makes all the difference. You can get people to show up for almost no money if it's a charity that's near and dear to their heart, that is in some way benefiting. I'll give you a small example. We recently were at the Fanatics Fest. You might have heard about this unbelievable event in New York. And one of our clients, Averex, had a small booth there amongst all these mega sport brands. And we thought, okay, how are we going to stand out in this crowd? We dress a lot of these guys, but we're not a sport brand. So one idea that we had was, let's get an NBA player involved to sign a jacket, and then let's auction off, or in this case, raffle off a jacket. We could have it in the booth. We could have the celeb player stop in, sign it, and then we can actually have this garment hanging in our booth, and we'll have a talking point forever. And we will give the money from the raffle to his favorite charity, and the brand would match it. And you know what? It was a magic moment. And if we hadn't had the charity connection, I mean, it would have been tens of thousands of dollars for an important NBA player to stop by, even for a few minutes. Didn't cost us because we gave the money to his favored charity. So it was beautiful all the way around, really.
That's great. And it advances the work that you're trying to do on behalf of the client to really bring them, I think, closer to the people they want to be close to, right? I mean,
Right.
their audience. It
Right.
certainly is good
Yeah,
PR, right? I mean, you get editors to
totally.
write about that stuff.
Totally.
Um, and I feel like it lasts too, right? Talk about reputation there.
It does last. And again, not to overuse the word authenticity, it is super important in the event, in the charitable partner, and the person you chose to be there. In this case, it was an NBA player from the Knicks. The brand is originally from New York. They have a big legacy in New York. And the money was going to a school that specializes in basketball in the Bronx. So it was a beautiful thing that, yeah, it was just all the way around. It worked. So it made sense for the brand. It made sense for the player, and everybody was happy, and we had recipients that were very appreciative, and it'll last a long time. And I'm sure we'll go back to them again.
So great, so great. Yeah, and then those results hang around just about forever, which is fantastic. Um, I imagine I want to ask you about the future of this, the future of your business. I imagine there's no end to this, right? It's sort of in terms of the audiences or the public's desire for this kind of stuff, it's really a bottomless pit, is it not?
Well, as we were saying earlier, social media, of course, devours all the messaging we put out there in a nanosecond. So we always have to be churning new ideas, new work. We didn't have to worry about this when we started years ago. If we got a client that was in fashion, if we got them in GQ or we got them in Vogue, oh my God, everyone was happy for months. We were talking about it. Are you kidding? Today, it literally is a day at most that we can shine with a particular piece of media. So I think, the biggest game changer is not the messaging. The messaging has to be consistent, whether you're on a billboard in Times Square or a print ad or your Instagram grid, right? The message has to look and feel the same. It's the amount, it is the quantity of really good content that has just fueled our industry and tasks our staff every single day. That's the game, and that's the future. And I don't see it letting up because, you need your great video storytelling, you need beautiful images, you need clever captions, you better be tagging the right people. There are so many things to think about when you talk about social media. So no, I don't see that ending anytime soon. And that's a big part of PR today.
It's so great, and it means opportunities for so many young people, especially coming up.
Oh yeah,
Who,
totally.
who might have wanted to at one time
Oh,
be journalists.
you're right.
Now,
As sad as that is, it is so important to have people on the team that have a strong working knowledge of social media because they grew up with it, they use it personally. A lot of times our clients don't really know the difference between a post and a reel. And frankly, Jody, I had to learn a lot of it along the way. I didn't grow up with that. We grew up with our favorite magazines and radio, and it was so different. Not the message. A good message works across all media, but I think you're so right for young people coming out of school that have the skills and personally have been in social for themselves. They're very valuable. And I'll tell you the other type of young aspiring PR professional that I think is really we're in desperate need of is somebody that knows how to talk on the phone. I have seen the scariest looks. I get the fear of God when I ask somebody to call an editor. Like they look at me like, I texted, I emailed. Yeah, no. Sometimes you just have to pick up the phone, go for it, and make a connection. It works, guys. It really does.
It's so true. And you, like you said, you and I grew up on that technology, whether it's, waiting with your finger on the record and the play button on your on your tape recorder to tape your favorite song off the radio, or picking up the phone. Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah. It's very, very important to have the conversations. I have to admit that Zoom definitely helped with that. I know a lot of people like to complain about Zoom, but since so many of us went hybrid, at least we can visually connect with somebody and not just have, the text and email chain. So there are certainly some advantages to the hybrid work situation.
For sure. Mindy, thank you so much for dropping so much knowledge with us here. We really enjoyed the conversation. We're not finished with you yet, though. Okay. We are going to pivot now into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast.
Okay.
This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. And, sitting in New York, I think we know what we're going to get from you. So with your indulgence, Mindy Gale, let's begin with rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
So for my industry, staying on top of fashion, I've got to be reading The Business of Fashion and Women's Wear Daily. Those are excellent sources of fashion and retail info.
Couldn't agree more. Rapid fire question number 2. What's your favorite social media platform?
Again, in my lane, I really lean into Instagram.
Yeah, it's where it's at. Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Oh my God. I'm a hybrid. I like espresso martinis.
There you go. Taking care of business. Rapid fire question number 4. And we need some New York flavor here. Don't let us down. What's your favorite on the run food?
Oh God, I'm going to let you down on this. I like Think Power Bars because they're protein. I always need protein. So while I'm, running in between, either an Uber and a client, I always have one of those Think Power Bars in my bag.
All right, that works. But when you're being bad, what are we eating in New York?
So, our office is directly across from this really amazing kind of elevated pizza place called Ovist. And I don't want to get into it, because a lot of people listening can't get there, but it's worthy. It is worthy of any cheat. Absolutely.
Sounds good. I'm going to check it out because I'm not far from you. Rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
Wow, that's the easiest question for me. That's an easy one. I want to be an artist. I want to be a fine artist. I want to hang out. I want to be able to set up my easel or paint some watercolors and chill and put on like amazing music and just let the creativity come out, not because I'm getting paid or not because I'm on a deadline, just flowing with creative and art.
That sounds like a terrific plan, Mindy. This has been a great conversation. Let people know how they can find you online.
Sure. Well, the agency is Gale Branding. So, of course, Gale Branding, you could reach me, Mindy, Mindy, at galebranding.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Mindy Gale, Gale. Our Instagram is at Gale Branding, GaleBranding.
Sounds good. We'll put all those links into the show notes. Thanks again, Mindy. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Apple. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.